Well, another standoff is brewing between Canberra and Perth, this time over the government's plans to overhaul support for the disabled. The Prime Minister's calling for a nationwide system, but WA Premier Colin Barnett says he won't give up his control of disability services in Western Australia. Political correspondent Tom Eagleton reports from Canberra.
A new way to slice the pie.
What about a piece of pizza for Jenny?
Thank you very much.
The government wants to carve up disability support services through long overdue reforms.
Central to these reforms is giving people with disabilities and their families more choice and control than they've had before over their individual circumstances.
The status quo is irretrievably broken, and that the future has to be very different to the past.
The government's pushing for a more centralised system that standardises eligibility for claiming disability and the cost of support services. A $10 million advisory board's been appointed to push the reforms.
Where it won't matter what state a person with disabilities is living in, they won't have to stay in a certain region because something's good in one area and rotten next door.
But the Western Australian Premier says things are just fine as they are in his state, and he's advising the federal government to tread carefully.
I am not in any way inclined to simply put my hand up and say yes to another clumsy Commonwealth attempt at takeover. This is all about political power for bureaucrats in Canberra.
The federal government provides a large share of the funds that states use to deliver disability services.
Our state colleagues have signed up to a national disability agreement with a lot more money in it from the federal government, but also with a reform agenda embedded in it, so they knew that we were looking for reform in disability services.
The reforms will be hammered out at a meeting of COAG next week. The Prime Minister says they're an important first step to a much wider plan that would mean a financially sustainable way of delivering more money and more services to the disabled and their families.
Getting the foundation stones right that are needed for any national disability insurance scheme.
The insurance scheme's been recommended by the Productivity Commission in a report released today. Everyone would be covered in a system that would work like Medicare. And it's also got the support of the federal opposition and Liberal state health ministers.
The states are quite sensible to be a little wary as they approach this, but that shouldn't be confused with a lack of goodwill on the part of state governments.
Which the Prime Minister hopes to bounce into an agreement.
There's some people taking photos of you.
Tom Eagleton, Late Line.